The 7-year-old daughter of a millionaire was born deaf until the housekeeper removed something mysterious and impossible from the girl's ear. Subscribe to the channel and comment on where you are watching from. The Monday sun filtered through the colonial windows of the imposing mansion on Main Street in Savannah, casting golden stripes on the polished wooden floor that creaked softly under the careful steps of Mary Grace. At 45, she bore the responsibility of caring for that century-old house and its residents with the same dedication that her mother, Mrs. Conception, had given to births in rural Georgia. "Peter, come here, my love," Mary gently called, her hands making the signs in American Sign Language that the 7-year-old boy knew so well. The boy lifted his eyes from the puzzle spread out on the Persian rug in the living room and ran towards the caregiver, his little bare feet barely making a sound on the cold floor. Peter was a special boy. Born with bilateral deafness, he saw the world through the most expressive eyes Mary had ever seen in her life. His light brown hair fell rebelliously over his forehead, and his tanned skin bore the marks of time spent playing in the yard among the century-old pecan trees. "It's time for your exercises, my dear," Mary said while signing, even knowing that Peter couldn't hear her affectionate voice. It was a habit she couldn't shake, talking while signing, as if somehow her words could reach the boy's heart through some mysterious path. The Smith mansion breathed history. Built in 1825 by a gold baron, the property had passed from generation to generation, holding secrets in every beam of hardwood and in every stone of its thick walls. The scent of antique furniture mingled with the aroma of the flowers in the garden that Mrs. Helen, Peter's grandmother, tended to with such care. Dr. Robert Smith, the boy's grandfather, was a 68-year-old man, tall and imposing like the mansions he restored. A specialist in sacred art, he had dedicated his entire life to restoring the original glory of the Baroque churches of Georgia. His large, calloused hands could feel the age of a gilded carving just by touch. "Mary, where is my grandson?" Dr. Robert's deep voice echoed down the hallway, carrying that serious tone that always accompanied him. He appeared at the entrance of the living room, wearing his impeccably pressed white dress shirt and the navy blue trousers he wore for work. "He's here with me, Mr. Robert. We're going to do the exercises now," Mary replied, maintaining the respect in her voice that 3 years of working in that house had solidified. Mrs. Helen soon appeared behind her husband, drying her hands on the floral apron she always wore in the morning. At 63, she maintained the elegance of someone who had been a literature teacher for over 30 years. Her grey hair was pulled back in a casual bun, and reading glasses hung from a golden chain around her neck. "Good morning, my beautiful grandson," she said, bending down to kiss Peter's forehead. The boy smiled and signed Grandma in ASL, eliciting an emotional smile from the woman. "Helen, you know I don't like these exaggerated displays," Dr. Robert murmured, but there was affection hidden in his rough voice. "The boy needs to learn to deal with reality. There's no point in creating false hopes." Mary felt her stomach tighten. This was a discussion she witnessed almost every day. Dr. Robert, with his practicality as a man of science, believed that Peter should come to terms with his condition and learn to live in the world of the deaf. Mrs. Helen, on the other hand, had never lost hope that some miracle could happen. "Robert, he's just a child," Mrs. Helen replied, her tone rising slightly. "It doesn't hurt to give our grandson some love. Love is one thing. Illusion is something very different." Dr. Robert adjusted his glasses and looked at Mary. "I hope you're not filling the boy's head with fantasies." "Mary, he needs to accept reality." Mary swallowed hard. If Dr. Robert knew what she was about to discover that afternoon, he might change his mind about fantasies and reality. "Don't worry, Mr. Robert. I always tell the truth to Peter," she replied, and deep down she knew that this truth was about to be tested in a way she never imagined. The boy tugged at Mary's hand, eager to start the exercises. They headed to the small office at the back of the house, where Dr. Robert had set up a special corner for Peter's activities. The walls were covered with colourful drawings the boy had made, and a low shelf held braille books and educational toys. "Sit here, my love," Mary indicated the little red chair that Peter adored. She picked up a small flashlight and began the visual auditory stimulation exercise that the speech therapist had taught. It was a routine they had followed religiously for 2 years, without ever seeing any results. But that day would be different. That day, Mary Grace, daughter of a midwife from rural Georgia, would discover something that would change not only Peter's life, but the fate of the entire Smith family. As Peter tried to follow the movement of the light with his eyes, Mary noticed something strange. A small reflection, almost imperceptible, coming from the boy's right ear. She furrowed her brow and leaned closer, trying to understand what that tiny glimmer could be. "Peter, stay still for just a second," she signed, and carefully tilted the boy's head to get a better view of the ear canal. It was then that she saw it. Something metallic the size of a grain of rice was lodged deep in Peter's ear. And the most astonishing part, the object, a faint blue light pulsed like an electronic heartbeat. Mary Grace's heart raced. Her hands trembled as she tried to process what she was seeing. All those years caring for Peter, all those medical exams, all those consultations with specialists. And no one had ever seen this. "My God," she whispered, automatically making the sign of the cross as her mother had taught her. Peter noticed the change in Mary Grace's behavior and signed "problem" in sign language. His little eyes worried, trying to understand what was happening. "No, my love, it's not a problem," Mary Grace tried to disguise, but her voice came out higher than usual. "It's just that Auntie saw a little something in your ear. Can Auntie take a better look?" The boy nodded, trusting Mary Grace completely as he always did. With her heart pounding, she picked up a small tweezer that Dr. Robert used to clean antique pieces and, with all the delicacy in the world, began to work on removing the mysterious object. Outside, the sound of cicadas announced that the afternoon heat was arriving. Dr. Robert was hammering something in the workshop, restoring yet another sacred piece. Mrs. Helen was watering the garden plants, humming an old tune. And there, in that quiet little room, Mary Grace was about to discover a secret that would change everything. With steady hands but a racing heart, Mary Grace managed to gently extract the small object from Peter's ear. What she held between her fingers looked like something out of a science fiction movie, a metallic device the size of a grain of rice, perfectly smooth, emitting a pulsing blue light that beat in time with a human heart. "Heavenly Mother, what is this?" Mary Grace murmured, turning the object from side to side. Peter watched her with curiosity, not understanding why his caregiver looked so astonished. The boy signed, "What is it?" in sign language, pointing to Mary Grace's closed hand. "I don't know, my dear, but Auntie will find out," she replied, carefully wrapping the device in a tissue. "For now, this will be our little secret, okay?" Peter nodded, always willing to share secrets with his dear Mary. But something was different. When she put the object away, the boy turned his head quickly, as if he had heard something. "Peter, what is it?" Mary Grace asked in sign language. The boy shook his head, confused. He signed "noise," but then quickly signed "I don't know," with a lost expression that broke Mary Grace's heart. At that moment, Dr. Robert's deep voice echoed down the hallway. "Mary, where are you?" "Lunch is on the table." "We'll be right there, Mr. Robert," she shouted back, but her voice trembled. Peter looked directly at her with wide eyes. For the first time in 7 years of life, the boy was reacting to a sound. Mary Grace felt her legs go weak. She crouched down to Peter's level and softly clapped her hands behind his head. The boy turned immediately. "My Jesus Christ," she whispered, making the sign of the cross again. The walk to the dining room felt eternal. Mary Grace carried Peter in her arms, more to support herself than to carry him, while her mind raced, trying to understand what had just happened. The object was tucked away in her apron pocket, seeming to burn through the fabric. The Aguiar dining room maintained the solemnity of the old Georgian mansions. The solid rosewood table, a legacy from Dr. Robert's great-grandfather, was set every day with the china that Mrs. Helen had received as a wedding gift. The crystal chandelier, even in daylight, cast small rainbows on the walls, covered with religious paintings. "You took a while today," Dr. Robert commented, pulling out a chair for his wife to sit. He used that dry tone that Mary Grace knew well, but it always made her nervous. "It's just that Peter was really interested in his exercises today," Mary Grace lied, placing the boy in the special chair that Dr. Robert had custom made. Mrs. Helen served the Southern-style beans she had made that morning, along with the pot roast that was the house specialty. The delicious smell of home-cooked food usually excited Peter, but today he seemed distracted, turning his head in every direction as if he were looking for something. "This boy's acting strange today," Mrs. Helen observed gently, running her hand through her grandson's hair. "Do you think he's not feeling well, Mary?" "No, Mrs. Helen, he's fine. It's just, I think he's more alert today," Mary Grace stammered, trying not to sound suspicious. Dr. Robert raised an eyebrow, that gesture he made when he doubted something. "More alert? How?" Mary Grace swallowed hard. She couldn't tell about the device, not yet. She needed to understand first what it meant. She needed to talk to someone who understood the subject. Her daughter Letitia, who was studying biomedicine at the University of Georgia, would be the first person she would seek. "Oh, I don't know. He's more attentive, paying more attention to things," she said, trying to sound natural. At that moment, Mrs. Helen accidentally dropped a fork on the floor. The metallic noise echoed through the room, and Peter turned his head immediately in the direction of the sound. The silence that followed was deafening. Dr. Robert paused with the spoon halfway to his mouth. Mrs. Helen froze, looking from the fork on the floor to her grandson. Mary Grace felt the blood run cold in her veins. "Helen," Dr. Robert said slowly, "pick up that fork again and drop it." "Robert, don't be ridiculous." "Helen, pick up the fork." With trembling hands, Mrs. Helen picked up the fork and dropped it again. Peter turned his head toward the noise, but this time with less certainty, as if he were unsure of what was happening. Dr. Robert slowly stood up from his chair. Mary Grace's eyes were fixed on her grandson. "Mary, what did you do to my grandson?" "Mr. Smith, I didn't do anything. I was just doing the usual exercises. Don't lie to me, Mary." His voice was low, but filled with an authority that made people tremble. "My grandson has been deaf since birth. 3 different ENT specialists have confirmed this. He can't be hearing. Maybe it's just a coincidence." Mrs. Helen tried to intervene, but her voice was weak. "Coincidence?" Dr. Robert let out a bitter laugh. "Twice in a row? Helen, you saw the same thing I did." Peter, sensing the tension in the air, began to get restless. He made the fear sign in sign language, looking from one adult to the other. Mary Grace stood up and picked the boy up in her arms. "Peter is not to blame for anything. If you are going to argue, at least don't do it in front of him." "No one is arguing," Dr. Robert said, but his tone remained harsh. "I just want to understand what is happening. And you are going to tell me everything, Mary, everything." "Robert, stop it." Mrs. Helen finally found her voice. "Mary has been taking care of our grandson for 3 years, with all the love in the world. If she says she hasn't done anything different, I believe her. Helen, you've always been too naive. There are people who will do anything to get attention, even with a child." The comment was like a slap in Mary Grace's face. She felt tears burning her eyes, but she wasn't going to give Dr. Robert the satisfaction of seeing her cry. "Mr. Smith, with all the respect I have for you, I would never do anything that could hurt Peter. That boy is like my own grandson." "Then explain to me how a boy who was born deaf is suddenly reacting to sounds." "I can't explain." Mary Grace exploded, and Peter began to cry in her arms. "I don't know how to explain because I don't understand any of this. I only know how to take care of children and the house. But one thing I guarantee, I have never done anything wrong with that boy." Mrs. Helen stepped closer and reached out her arms for Peter. "Come here, my love." "Grandma is here." The boy nestled in his grandmother's lap, still crying softly. Mrs. Helen rocked him gently, humming a lullaby that always calmed him. "Robert, enough. You're scaring everyone," she said firmly. "If something different is happening with Peter, we will take him to the doctor tomorrow. But stop attacking Mary like this. Dr. Robert ran his hand through his graying hair, a gesture he made when he was nervous. He looked at Mary Grace for a long moment, as if trying to read her soul. "All right, tomorrow morning we will go to Dr. Johnson. And Mary," he paused, "if you are hiding something from us, you'd better tell us now. Because if I find out that you have been experimenting with my grandson—" "Robert!" Mrs. Helen cut him off. "Enough!" Mary Grace hugged herself, feeling the object in her apron pocket like a bomb about to explode. She needed to get out of there, needed to think, needed to talk to Lisa. "Mr. Smith, Mrs. Helen, if you will excuse me, I will tidy up the kitchen and then leave early today. I'm feeling a bit unwell." "Of course, Mary, you deserve to rest," Mrs. Helen said gently. As she washed the dishes, Mary Grace felt the weight of the secret like a stone in her chest. Outside, Peter played in the yard with his grandmother, and she could see through the window how different the boy was, more attentive to the movements around him. At 4 in the afternoon, Mary Grace packed her apron in a bag, along with the mysterious object wrapped in the cloth. She kissed Peter on the forehead and promised she would return the next day. But as she walked down the cobblestone hill toward the bus station, where she would catch the bus home, Mary Grace knew that her life had changed forever that Monday afternoon. And the scariest part of all, she had no idea whether it had changed for better or worse. The bus ride to Springfield had never seemed so long. Mary Grace squeezed into the worn plastic seat, feeling the mysterious object burning in the bottom of her bag like a piece of hot coal. Every bump in the road made her stomach churn, and it wasn't just because of the winding mountain roads. Arriving home, a simple little house with 3 rooms that she had rented for 15 years, Mary rushed to lock the door and close all the curtains. Her hands trembled as she called Lisa. "Hello, sweetheart. Can you come over today? It's urgent. Mom, I'm in the middle of a practical class." "Did something happen?" Lisa's worried voice on the other end of the line made Mary's heart tighten even more. "Lisa, I need you to come. I found something very strange in Peter's ear. Something that I think isn't from this world." The silence on the other end lasted for a few eternal seconds. "Mom, are you okay?" "Are you serious?" "I've never been more serious in my life, my daughter. Please, come here." 2 hours later, Lisa parked her red Honda motorcycle in front of her mother's house. At 22, she had inherited Mary Grace's determination, combined with the scientific curiosity that college had awakened. Her curly hair was tied back in a ponytail, and she still wore her white lab coat from the university. "Mom, what is this story?" Lisa asked as soon as she entered, hugging Mary Grace tightly. "Sit here, sweetheart. You won't believe what I'm going to show you." Mary Grace carefully took the cloth out of her bag and placed it on the kitchen table. When she opened the fabric, revealing the small device that was still pulsing with its faint blue light, Lisa let out a scream. The atmosphere was stifling. "Heavens! What is this?" "That's what I wanted you to tell me. I took this out of Peter's ear this afternoon." Lisa approached slowly, her eyes wide. As a biomedical student, she had seen many medical devices, but never anything like this. "Mom, this isn't normal." "This isn't earthly." "Lisa." "No, Mom, I'm serious. This has technology I've never seen even in the most advanced labs at the university." Lisa picked up a magnifying glass that Mary used for sewing and examined the object more closely. "Look at this. It's perfectly smooth with no seams. And this light, it seems to have its own energy. And there's more, daughter. After I took this out of the boy's ear, he started reacting to sounds." Lisa jerked her head up. "What do you mean?" Mary told her everything. The routine exercise, the discovery of the object, Peter's reaction to the noises, the tense discussion at lunch with Dr. Robert. "Mom, are you absolutely sure he was reacting to the sounds?" "I am, my daughter. I saw it with my own eyes." The boy turned his head towards the sound of the falling fork. Twice. Lisa ran her hand over her face, trying to process the information. "Mom, this is impossible. A device like this that can restore hearing to a person born deaf. That would be revolutionary. It would be the biggest advancement in medicine in the last 50 years. So, you think this could be true?" That Peter might have started hearing again? I don't know, Mom, but one thing I do know, we need to understand what this object is. And we need to protect Peter too. Protect how? Lisa stood up and began pacing the small kitchen, her brain working a mile a minute. Think with me, Mom. If someone put this in Peter's ear, it was without the family's consent. This could be an illegal experiment. And if it is what? If it is, there are very powerful people involved in this. People who wouldn't like to know that their experiment was discovered. A chill ran down Mary's spine. My God, daughter. Do you think Peter could be in danger? I don't know, Mom, but we need to be very careful. We can't tell anyone yet. But what about tomorrow? Dr. Robert is taking the boy to the doctor. If the doctor examines him and finds out Peter is hearing, then things get complicated. Lisa sat back down and took her mother's hands. Mom, I have a professor at college, Dr. Henry, who works with bioengineering. He's a good guy, discreet. Can I show this to him? Just for him to analyze what it is? Mary hesitated. Every person who knew the secret was one more risk. Is he trustworthy? Very. And Mom, we need to understand what this does. If it really restores hearing, imagine how many deaf children could be helped. And what if it's dangerous? What if this has harmed Peter? That's why we need to know what it is to protect him. Mary looked again at the small object. The blue light continued to pulse, hypnotizing, as if it had a life of its own. Okay, but promise me you won't tell anyone else besides this professor. I promise. Mom, Lisa carefully wrapped the device in a clean cloth and placed it in a small metal box she grabbed from her motorcycle. Tomorrow morning I'll take it to Dr. Henry. You go to work as if nothing happened. If Dr. Robert asks anything about Peter reacting to sounds, you say you noticed it too, but you can't explain it. And if the doctor discovers something, then we'll see. But for now, it's better to pretend we don't know anything. That night, Mary barely slept. She lay staring at the ceiling, thinking about Peter, wondering what might have happened to him when he was a baby, thinking about who could have put that object in a newborn's ear. By 5 a.m, she was already up, making coffee and getting ready for another day at work. But when she arrived at the Smith mansion, the situation was even tenser than she had imagined. Dr. Robert was in the living room on the phone, speaking loudly to someone. I want an appointment today, doctor. No, it can't be tomorrow. It's urgent. Okay, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Thank you very much. He hung up the phone and turned to Mary, who had just entered. Mary, change of plans. At 2 o'clock, I'm taking Peter to Dr. Johnson. You're coming with me? Mary's heart sank. Me, Mr. Smith. You. I want you to tell the doctor exactly what happened yesterday. In the smallest details. Mrs. Helen appeared in the room, carrying Peter in her arms. The boy seemed more agitated than usual, constantly turning his head as if he were hearing things no one else could. Robert, wouldn't it be better to wait a few more days? To see if Helen, no. If something is wrong with our grandson, I want to know today. Mary looked at Peter and felt her chest tighten. The boy signed good morning in sign language and smiled at her, unaware that he was at the center of a discovery that could change not only his life, but the lives of millions of people. Good morning, my love, she replied in sign language, trying to keep her voice steady. But inside, Mary Grace was terrified, because she knew that in a few hours, at the doctor's appointment, the truth would start to come out. And she had no idea how dangerous that truth could be. Dr. Maurice Johnson's office was located on one of the busiest streets in Savannah, in a colonial house that had been adapted to accommodate a Mary Grace sat tightly in the back seat of Dr. Robert's car, with Peter on her lap, while Mrs. Helen held her husband's hand firmly. Robert, you're driving too fast, Mrs. Helen murmured, but her voice sounded more anxious than reproachful. I just want to get there quickly and resolve this situation, Dr. Robert replied, gripping the steering wheel even tighter. Peter seemed fascinated by the sounds of traffic. His little eyes followed each passing car, every honk and every sudden brake. Mary tried to hide her nervousness, but her hands trembled as she stroked the boy's hair. In the waiting room, the atmosphere was tense. Dr. Robert tapped his fingers on the leather chair. Glancing at the clock every 2 minutes, Mrs. Helen flipped through a magazine without paying attention to what she was reading. Peter played with a toy car he had brought, but occasionally stopped to look at the ceiling, as if he were hearing something no one else could. "A Guillard family?" The nurse called, and everyone stood up at once. Dr. Michael Johnson was a man in his 50s, balding, with thick-rimmed glasses and a gentle smile that always reassured patients. He had known Peter since he was a baby and had been one of the doctors who confirmed the diagnosis of bilateral deafness. "How's our Peter doing?" he asked, bending down to be at the boy's level. Peter smiled and waved his hand in sign language. "Doctor, that's what we came to talk to you about," Dr. Roberts said directly. "Something very strange happened yesterday." Dr. Johnson settled into his chair and opened Peter's medical file. "Go on." "Peter reacted to sounds," Mrs. Helen said quickly before her husband could speak. The doctor raised his eyebrows. "What do you mean, reacted to sounds?" "He turned his head when a fork fell on the floor," Dr. Robert explained.
"Twice Mary was there."
"She can confirm." Dr. Johnson looked at Mary, who was sitting in a chair in the corner of the office with Peter on her lap. "Mary, can you tell me what you saw?" Mary swallowed hard. It's true, Doctor. Peter turned his head when he heard the noise, but I can't explain how. I see." Dr. Johnson made some notes in the file. "Let's do some tests then." "Peter, come here with me." The doctor started with simple tests. He clapped his hands behind Peter's head. The boy turned. He shook a rattle on the right side. Peter looked in the direction of the sound. He spoke Peter's name softly. Peter searched with his eyes for the person speaking. The silence in the office was deafening. Dr. Johnson looked as surprised as the rest of the family. "This is unusual," he finally said. "Unusual," Dr. Robert exploded. "Doctor, my grandson was born deaf. You confirmed the diagnosis several times." "I know, Robert, calm down. There are rare, very rare cases of spontaneous recovery of hearing, but what? But not in cases of profound congenital deafness like Peter's. What he had was a malformation in the inner ear. That doesn't heal on its own." Mrs. Helen stood up from her chair. "So what do you think happened?" Dr. Johnson took off his glasses and nervously cleaned them. "I don't know, Helen. Honestly, I don't know. I will need to do more detailed tests. MRI, CT scan, complete audiometry. When?" Dr. Robert asked. "I'll call the hospital right now, if I can today. This needs to be investigated urgently." While Dr. Johnson made the calls, Mary felt the world spinning around her. Peter was sitting on the floor, playing with some toys from the office, oblivious to the upheaval he was causing in the adults' lives. "Doctor," Mrs. Helen said when he finished talking on the phone, "is there any explanation, let's say non-medical, for this?" "What do you mean?" "Miracle, divine intervention, those kinds of things," Dr. Robert scoffed. "Helen, for heaven's sake, Robert, let me speak. Dr. Mary's family is very religious. Could it be a blessing?" Dr. Johnson smiled gently. "Helen, I greatly respect people's faith, but as a doctor, I need to find a scientific explanation, and at this moment, I don't have one." The phone rang. Dr. Johnson answered quickly and spoke for a few minutes. "Got it. At 5 o'clock at St. Francis Hospital in Atlanta. They will do a complete battery of tests. Today?" Mary asked, startled. "Today. Mary, you will go with him, right? Peter trusts you a lot. He will be calmer with you around." "Of course, Doctor. Of course I will." As they left the office, Dr. Roberts stopped Mary on the sidewalk. "Mary, I want to apologize for the way I spoke to you yesterday. I was nervous." "It's okay, Mr. Robert. You were worried about Peter. I still am. Mary, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest with me." Mary's heart raced. "Go ahead. Did you do anything different with Peter? Any new exercises, any medication, anything you didn't tell me?" Mary looked into Dr. Roberts' eyes. She was lying to a man who had trusted her for 3 years, but she was doing it to protect Peter. "No, Mr. Robert, I did everything just as I always do. The same exercises that the speech therapist taught." Dr. Robert studied her for a long moment. "Deem." "All right, let's go home then. At 3 o'clock we leave for Atlanta." The trip to the hospital was tense. Peter slept in Mary's lap almost the entire time, exhausted from the busy morning. Dr. Robert drove in silence, lost in thought. Mrs. Helen prayed softly with her rosary. At St. Francis Hospital, Peter underwent a series of tests that lasted almost 3 hours. Mary stayed with him the whole time, translating the doctor's instructions into sign language and calming the boy when he got scared by the equipment. Dr. Fernando Ribeiro, the neurologist who coordinated the tests, was a young man around 40 years old with an excellent reputation in the field of hearing disorders. "The results are surprising," he said when the whole family gathered in the consultation room. "What do you mean?" Dr. Robert asked. "Peter is hearing. There's no doubt about it. The audiometry shows that he has approximately 60% of normal hearing." "But how is that possible?" Mrs. Helen asked. "That's the surprising part. The images show that the congenital malformation is still there. The inner ear still has the same problems as always, but there is neurological activity in the auditory areas of his brain that has never existed before." "What does that mean?" Lisa asked. "It means that something is stimulating the auditory areas of his brain, even without the inner ear functioning properly. It's as if something is bridging the gap between sound and the brain." Dr. Robert leaned forward. "Something like what?" "I don't know. I've never seen anything like it. I will need to consult colleagues, research the medical literature. This could be a unique case in medicine." As the doctors talked about additional tests and consultations with specialists, Lisa looked at Peter, who was peacefully sleeping in her arms. The boy had no idea he was becoming a medical mystery, and Lisa knew that very soon the small object she had kept with her would be the key to solving this mystery. But she also knew that when that happened, nothing would be the same in any of their lives. Because some discoveries change the world, and others put lives at risk. The next morning, Lisa was in the laboratory at the State University of Georgia at exactly 7 o'clock, 2 hours before classes began. She had spent the entire night thinking about the mysterious object and barely managed to sleep. Dr. Henry Morris, her bioengineering professor, was known for arriving early at the lab, and she knew she would have at least an hour alone with him before other students showed up. "Lisa, what are you doing here so early?" Dr. Henry asked when he found her organizing equipment in the lab. He was a 45-year-old man with grey hair, modern glasses, and a scientific curiosity that made his eyes shine whenever he encountered something new. "Professor, I need to show you something. But first, I need you to promise me that you will keep it completely confidential." Dr. Henry frowned. "Lisa, this sounds serious. Is everything okay?" "It is serious, Professor. Very serious." She carefully took the small metal box from her backpack and placed it on the lab bench. When she opened it and revealed the device still pulsating with its blue light, Dr. Henry let out a low whistle. "My God, what is this?" "This was taken from the ear of a 7-year-old child yesterday." "Taken by whom?" "By a doctor. By my mother. She is the child's caregiver." Dr. Henry approached the bench but did not touch the object. His scientist's eyes were already analyzing every detail. "Lisa, do you have any idea what this could be?" "I have no idea, Professor. But there's more. After it was removed, the child started to hear. And she was born deaf." The professor sat heavily in a chair, taking off his glasses to nervously clean the lenses. "Are you absolutely sure about what you're telling me?" "I am. The family took the child to the doctor yesterday. They did all the tests. The child is hearing, even with the congenital malformation that caused the deafness. That's impossible. Not with the technology we know today." Dr. Henry stood up and began to walk around the lab. "Lisa, if this is true, if this device can really restore hearing in cases of congenital deafness, we are talking about a revolution in medicine. We are talking about something worth billions of dollars. Professor, can you analyze this?" "I can and I will. But Lisa, do you understand the implications? If someone implanted this in a child without consent, we are talking about illegal experimentation." "That's a crime." "I know. That's why I need to understand what it is. To protect the child, Dr. Henry returned to the bench and picked up a magnifying glass with 20 times magnification. First, let's take a closer look at this. He examined the device carefully, making notes in a notebook. The surface is perfectly smooth. I don't see any solder points, no seams. It's as if it was molded from a single piece. And that blue light? It's pulsating at a frequency of approximately 1.2 hertz. It's almost the same frequency as resting heartbeats. He took a multimeter and brought the probes close to the device. It's emitting a very weak but constant electromagnetic field. Professor, is this dangerous? I don't know yet. We'll need to do more tests. They spent the next 2 hours analyzing the object. Dr. Henry used spectroscopy equipment, electron microscopy, and chemical composition analysis. With each test, his expression became more intrigued. Lisa, look at this, he said, pointing to the screen of the electron microscope. The surface is not common metal. It seems to be an alloy I've never seen before. And there are microscopic structures that look like circuits, but they are organic. Organic how? As if they were living tissue integrated with electronic components. This is biotechnology at a level that doesn't officially exist. At that moment, Lisa's phone rang. It was Mary. Daughter, how's it going? Mom, it's complicated. The professor has never seen anything like it. And how did your doctor appointment go yesterday? Oh, my daughter, it was crazy. The boy's really hearing. They did a bunch of tests, and the doctors are all confused. They want to do more tests next week. Mom, did you tell them anything about the object? No, daughter. I didn't say anything. But it's hard to keep it a secret. Dr. Robert is suspicious about something. Dr. Henry, who was listening to the conversation, gestured for Lisa to pass the phone to him. Mrs. Mary, this is Professor Henry from the university. Lisa. She told me about her situation. Professor, can you help me? I can, but first I need to ask you a few questions. Did the child show any side effects after the object was removed? Headaches, dizziness, anything like that? No, Professor. He's fine, just listening now. He even seems calmer. And are you sure no one in the family knows about the object? I'm sure. Just me, Lisa, and now you. Mrs. Mary, what I'm going to say is very important. This object cannot fall into the wrong hands. If it ends up with the wrong people, it could be very dangerous for the child and for you. What do you mean, dangerous? Dr. Henry looked at Lisa before answering. This type of technology represents a lot of money. Many people would do anything to get it. And if they find out it was illegally implanted in a child, oh my God, Professor, what should I do? For now, keep pretending you don't know anything. Leave the object with me for a few more days. I'll reach out to some trusted colleagues to see if anyone knows about this technology. Okay, Professor. But please, protect my little Peter. I'll do everything I can. After he hung up, Dr. Henry stared at the device for a long time. Professor, what are you thinking? I'm thinking this could be bigger than we imagined, Lisa. Much bigger. He picked up his phone and dialed a number. Charles, this is Henry. Can you come to my lab today? I have something you need to see. No, I can't talk on the phone. It's about advanced biotechnology. Okay, I'll see you at 2. Who is Charles? Lisa asked. Dr. Charles Anderson. He works at the CDC. He specializes in experimental biomedical devices. If anyone knows what this is, it's him. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Dr. Charles arrived at the lab. He was a 50-year-old black man, bald, with a piercing gaze and an impeccable reputation in the scientific community. When he saw the object, his reaction was immediate. Henry, where did you get this? Charles, do you recognize this technology? I do. And you need to know you're dealing with something very dangerous. What do you mean? Dr. Charles sat down and took a deep breath. 5 years ago, the CDC received a confidential report about illegal experiments with neural implants. They were unauthorized tests funded by a pharmaceutical multinational. And this object looks very much like the prototypes described in the report. Henry, if this is what I think it is, you need to contact the federal police immediately. Why? Because there may be other children. Many other children. Lisa felt her blood run cold. Professor, what does this mean? Dr. Charles looked directly at her. It means, young lady, that you may have uncovered an international network of human experimentation, and your lives could be in danger. The silence in the lab was broken only by the faint hum of electronic equipment, and by the blue light of the object, which continued to pulse like an artificial heart, holding secrets that could change the world or destroy lives. Dr. Charles walked to the lab window, watching the movement of students on the university campus. His hands trembled slightly as he lit a cigarette, even knowing it was prohibited to smoke inside the building. "Henry, you need to understand the gravity of the situation," he said, exhaling smoke through the slightly open window. "In 2019, the CDC received an anonymous dossier about an operation called Project Prometheus. It was a clandestine program for neural implants in babies." "Project Prometheus," Lisa repeated, feeling a chill down her spine. "The name is a reference to the Titan from Greek mythology, who stole fire from the gods to give to humans. Only in this case, they were stealing disabilities to create human enhancement." Dr. Henry moved closer to his colleague. "Charles, are you talking about eugenics?" "Not exactly. It was more complex than that. According to the dossier, they were implanting devices in babies with congenital disabilities, especially deafness and blindness. The devices would remain dormant for years until activated remotely." "Activated how?" Lisa asked. "By specific signals, electromagnetic frequencies. The goal was to create a generation of children who were, let's say, enhanced, with abilities beyond the normal." Dr. Henry ran his hand through his hair. "And what happened to that investigation?" "It was suppressed. Authorities said it was a conspiracy, that there was no concrete evidence. But some of us knew it was real." "Professor," Lisa interrupted, "do you think Peter is part of this project?" "It's very likely. And if he is, you have no idea what you're up against." Dr. Charles extinguished his cigarette and returned to the bench where the device was being analyzed. "This type of technology represents billions of dollars in investment. The companies involved have enough power to do anything to protect their secrets." "Anything like what?" Dr. Henry asked, but his voice showed he already knew the answer. "Like making people disappear, Henry. Like silencing entire families." At that moment, Lisa's phone rang again. It was Mrs. Mary, and her voice was desperate. "Honey, something very strange just happened here." "What is it, Mom?" "Two men came here to the Smith's house claiming to be investigators. They said they are investigating medical irregularities in the area. They asked a lot of questions about Peter." Lisa's blood ran cold. "What kind of questions?" "They asked if he had undergone any recent medical procedures, if the family had noticed changes in his behavior, those kinds of things. Dr. Robert got very nervous." Dr. Charles signaled for Lisa to pass the phone to him. "Mrs. Mary, this is Dr. Charles. Listen carefully to what I'm going to say. Those men were not legitimate investigators." "How do you know?" Because official medical investigations don't work like that. They were looking for information about the device." "Oh my God, do they know?" "Not yet. But they suspect, Mrs. Mary, you are in danger." "The whole family is. What should I do?" Dr. Charles looked at Dr. Henry. Mrs. Mary nodded gravely. "You need to leave the city today. Take the child and go somewhere no one knows where you are." "I can't do that." "My job, my life." "Mrs. Mary," Dr. Charles raised his voice, "you don't understand. These people kill to protect their secrets." On the other end of the line, Mary began to cry. "But I can't take Peter away from his family. They are all he has." "Then convince the family to go with you." "How am I supposed to explain this without telling them about the object?" Dr. Henry picked up the phone. "Mrs. Mary, leave it to me. I'll call Dr. Robert and make up a medical excuse. I'll say there's an outbreak of a rare disease in the area, and that it's recommended that families with special needs, children, temporarily leave the city." "Do you think he'll believe it?" "He'll have to believe it. And Mrs. Mary, one very important thing. Destroy everything that could connect you to what happened. Notebooks, notes, anything." After they hung up, the three sat in silence for a few minutes. "Henry," Dr. Charles finally said, "we're at risk now too." "What do you mean?" "If they track the child, they can track anyone who had contact with the device. Including us. Lisa felt her legs go weak. Professor, what have we done? No, you did the right thing, Dr. Charles replied. But now we need to be very smart. He took out his cell phone and dialed a number. Marina, this is Charles. I need to talk to you urgently. No, it can't be over the phone. Can you come to Atlanta today? It's about Project Prometheus. I understand. I'll wait for you. Who is Marina? Dr. Henry asked. Marina Salgado. She's an investigative journalist from Globo. She was the one who wrote the first article about the illegal experiments in 2019. And what happened to the article? It was censored before it aired. Marina almost lost her job, but she kept investigating on her own. Dr. Charles turned to Lisa. You need to contact your mother again. You need to explain to her how important it is for her to convince the family to leave the city. But, Professor, if I tell my mom the truth, you don't need to tell her everything. Just enough for her to understand that it's a matter of life or death. While Lisa called Mary, Dr. Henry and Dr. Charles prepared the device for transport. Henry, we're taking this to Brasilia. To Brasilia? I have contacts in the federal police. Trusted people who are investigating corruption in the health sector. They need to see this. And what if we get caught on the way? It's a risk we'll have to take. On the other side of the lab, Lisa was having a tense conversation with her mother. Mom, you need to trust me. Those men who showed up weren't from the government. How do you know, honey? Because the object I took out of Peter's ear is more dangerous than we imagined. Dangerous how? Mom, there are other children like Peter, many others. And the people who did this to them don't want anyone to find out. Lisa, you're scaring me. That's the point. Mom, you need to convince Dr. Robert and Mrs. Helen to leave the city. Today. And where am I supposed to tell them to go? To Mrs. Helen's sister's house in Asheville. Remember, she always talks about her sister who lives there. I remember. Say it's just for a few days until the investigators finish their work in the area. And what if they don't want to go? Then you take Peter and go alone. Understood. You take Peter and leave the city with or without the family. Honey, I can't kidnap the boy. Mom, it's not kidnapping. It's protection. And if necessary, I'll explain everything to the federal police later. When Lisa hung up, her hands were shaking. Did you manage to convince her? Dr. Henry asked. I think so. But Professor, what if we're overreacting? What if those men are really legitimate investigators? Dr. Charles shook his head. Lisa, in 30 years of my career, I've learned one thing. When it comes to illegal experiments on human beings, it's better to err on the side of caution than to underestimate the danger. He carefully placed the device in a special box and put it in a backpack. Henry, Lisa, you have two options. You can go home and pretend none of this happened, or you can come with me to Brasilia and help expose this network. What are the risks? Lisa asked. If we go, we risk being discovered and eliminated. If we don't go, we risk that other children will continue to be used as guinea pigs. Dr. Henry didn't hesitate. I'm going. Lisa thought of Peter, the boy's innocent smile, the trust he placed in his mother. I'm going too. And that's how 3 ordinary people became the only obstacles between a 7-year-old child and a conspiracy that could change the fate of humanity. Or destroy them all. Mary Grace had never lied so convincingly in her life. When she arrived at the Smith mansion the next morning, she found the family still shaken by the visit from the fake investigators. Mr. Robert, Mrs. Helen, I need to tell you something, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. My daughter called last night. She's interning at the hospital in Atlanta and said there's an outbreak of a very dangerous disease in the area. Dr. Robert looked up from the newspaper. What kind of disease? An infection that attacks the nervous system, mainly in children who already have some neurological issues. Mary swallowed hard, improvising the story she had rehearsed all night. The doctors are recommending that families with special needs children leave the area for a few days. Mrs. Helen stopped brushing Peter's hair. Mary, is this serious? Very serious, Mrs. Helen. Lisa said that already. Adaptações, Donna Helena, Mrs. Helen. Diamantina, Asheville. There are 5 children hospitalized in critical condition. But why didn't we hear about this in the newspapers? Dr. Robert asked, suspicious. It's because they don't want to cause panic. They're trying to control the situation before making it public. Peter, sitting on the floor playing with his toy cars, suddenly lifted his head. He was listening to the adults' conversation, something he had never been able to do before. "Grandma," he said softly, the first spoken word he could hear coming from his own mouth. The 3 adults turned immediately. The boy had spoken. He had really spoken, not just gestured. "Peter," Mrs. Helen whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "Grandma," Peter repeated, smiling. "Grandma, Grandpa Maria." Dr. Robert slowly rose from the armchair as if in a trance. He's talking and listening," Maria added. "Mr. Robert, that's exactly why you need to leave the city. If this illness affects Peter now that he is getting better," the strategy worked. The idea of losing Peter's miraculous progress was enough to convince Dr. Robert. "Helen, pack your bags. We're going to your sister's house in Asheville." "When?" Mrs. Helen asked. "Now. Maria, you're coming with us." "Of course." "Mr. Robert, I just need to stop by my house quickly to grab a few things." An hour later, Maria was at her small house gathering the bare essentials in an old suitcase. Her hands trembled as she packed clothes and documents. At the back of the closet, she took the image of Our Lady of Aparecida that belonged to her mother and carefully wrapped it in a cloth. "My mother, protect me," she murmured. "Protect all of us." The phone rang. It was Lisa. "Mom, did you manage to convince them?" "I did, dear. We're leaving for Asheville now." "Great, Mom, I'm also going to travel. I can't say where, but I'll be away for a few days." "Honey, are you okay?" "I'm worried." "I'm fine, Mom. Just be careful. If anything strange happens, call me immediately." "Okay, my daughter. Take care." When Maria returned to the mansion, she found Dr. Robert loading bags into the car. Mrs. Helen was in the back seat with Peter in her lap, softly singing to calm him. "Maria, sit up front with me," Dr. Robert said. "I need you to stay alert on the way. If Peter gets sick or anything, don't worry." "Mr. Robert." The trip to Asheville usually took 2 hours, but Dr. Robert drove slowly, frequently stopping to check on Peter. The boy seemed fascinated by the sounds of traffic, the wind through the windows, and the music playing on the radio. "Music," he suddenly said, pointing to the radio. "That's right, my love," Mrs. Helen said, hugging her grandson. "It's music. I like the music," Peter said, each word coming out slowly but clearly. Maria felt her heart tighten. The boy was discovering an entire world of sounds, unaware that his life was in danger because of this discovery. Halfway there, Dr. Robert's cell phone rang. "Hello." "Dr. Robert, this is Investigator Silva. We were at your house yesterday. We need to ask a few more questions about your grandson." Dr. Robert looked at Maria, confused. "Investigator Silva? But we're not home. We left the city because of the disease outbreak that's happening." "What outbreak?" "The neurological outbreak. Doctors recommended that families with special needs children leave the area." There was silence on the other end of the line. "Dr. Robert, there is no outbreak in the area." "Who told you that?" Dr. Robert's blood ran cold. He looked at Maria, who was as pale as a sheet. I need to hang up. I'll talk to you later." He hung up the phone and pulled over to the side of the road. "Maria!" His voice was low, dangerous. "What is this story about an outbreak?" "Mr. Robert, Maria, the truth. Now." Mrs. Helen leaned forward. "Robert, what's going on?" "The investigator said there is no outbreak in the area." The silence in the car was suffocating. Peter sensed the tension and began to get restless. "Fear," he said in sign language and out loud at the same time. "Fear." Maria took a deep breath. It was time to tell at least part of the truth. "Mr. Robert, those men who showed up at your house yesterday were not real investigators." "How do you know?" Because I discovered something about Peter, something that might explain why he started hearing again." Dr. Robert started the car again and returned to the road, but more slowly. "Tell me." "I found an object in Peter's ear." "A kind of device." "What kind of device?" "I don't know. My daughter took it to analyze at the university. But the professor said it's very advanced technology. Maria, Mrs. Helen said slowly, did you take something out of my grandson's ear? I did, Mrs. Helen, on Monday during the exercises. It was a tiny thing, but it was there. Dr. Roberts stopped the car again, this time at a farm entrance. Where is that object now? With the university professor. He's trying to figure out what it is. And why didn't you tell us this? Because I was afraid you wouldn't believe me. And then, when Peter started to hear you were afraid of losing your job, Dr. Robert completed. That wasn't it. I was afraid someone would want to hurt Peter because of that object. Hurt how? Maria told him about the conversation with the professor, about Dr. Charles, about the possibility of an illegal experimentation network. When she finished, Dr. Roberts stared at the horizon for a long time. Ellen, he finally said, call your sister. Tell her we're arriving tonight and that we might need to stay longer than planned. Robert, do you believe Maria? I believe there are people looking for my grandson for some reason. And that's enough to make me worried. He looked in the rearview mirror at Peter, who was sleeping in Mrs. Helen's lap. Mary, is your daughter trustworthy? Completely, Mr. Robert. Then let's hope she and that professor discover the truth before those people find us. Dr. Roberts started the car and accelerated towards Asheville, unaware that at that very moment Lisa and the two professors were on a road to Washington, D.C., carrying the object that could save Peter or condemn them all. The afternoon fell over the mountains of North Carolina, and two families were fleeing from an enemy they still didn't know exactly who it was, but who was certainly looking for them. The trip to Washington, D.C. was tense. Dr. Henry drove his silver Civic through the roads of North Carolina, while Dr. Charles and Lisa took turns checking if they were being followed. The device was stored in a special box in the glove compartment, but its presence seemed to radiate a sinister energy throughout the car. Lisa, did your mother call? Dr. Charles asked for the third time in an hour. No, Professor. But she said she would only call if something happened. Let's hope nothing happens. They arrived in the federal capital late in the afternoon. Dr. Charles drove them directly to a discreet building in the South Commercial sector, where a private office of the federal police specialized in human rights crimes operated. Inspector Marina Ferraz was a woman in her 40s, with black hair tied in a strict bun, a penetrating gaze that missed nothing. She had known Dr. Charles for over 10 years, since he started investigating irregularities in the public health sector. Charles, you said it was urgent, she greeted as the three entered her office. Marina, do you remember Project Prometheus? The inspector's face immediately tightened. Of course I remember. And you know that officially that case was closed due to lack of evidence. And unofficially I never stopped investigating. She looked at Dr. Henry and Lisa. And who are they? Professor Henry Morris, bioengineering from the State University of Georgia. And Lisa Santos, biomedical student. Nice to meet you, Marina greeted, but her eyes remained suspicious. What do you have that might interest the federal police? Dr. Charles signaled to Dr. Henry, who carefully took the box from the glove compartment and placed it on the inspector's desk. This was removed from the ear of a 7-year-old child yesterday. When the box was opened and revealed the still pulsing device, Marina leaned forward. Damn, she whispered. Where did you get this? In a house in Savannah, Lisa replied. The child was born deaf, but after this was removed, she started to hear. Marina took a magnifying glass from the drawer and examined the object carefully. Charles, this is identical to the prototypes described in the 2019 dossier. I know. That's why we're here. Do you have any idea what you've just found? Proof that Project Prometheus is real? Dr. Henry suggested. No. You found proof that Project Prometheus was never interrupted. Marina stood up and walked to a file from which she retrieved a thick folder. In the last 2 years, we've had reports of sudden improvement in children with disabilities in at least 8 states. 8 states? Lisa repeated, alarmed. North Carolina, Virginia, Georgia, Florida, Texas, Ohio, Illinois, and Pennsylvania. Always the same pattern. children born with congenital disabilities who suddenly show inexplicable improvements. Dr. Charles sat heavily in a chair. How many children? 43 documented cases. There are probably many more that haven't been reported. And the families? Most have disappeared. They changed cities, changed identities. In some cases, the children simply vanished. Vanished how? Lisa asked, feeling her stomach churn. Officially, accidents, sudden illnesses, voluntary relocations. Unofficially, they were silenced. Marina opened the folder and spread photographs across the table. They were pictures of children of various ages, all with disabilities, all innocently smiling at the camera. These are the ones who disappeared in the last 2 years. Lisa held back tears as she saw the children's faces. And you couldn't do anything? We managed to identify the company behind the experiments. Neurogen Corporation, a pharmaceutical multinational based in Switzerland. But they have lawyers and enough money to block any investigation. Until now, Dr. Charles said, pointing to the device. Exactly. This object is the first physical evidence we've obtained. With this, I can finally get search and seizure warrants. And the child? Lisa asked. Peter, will he be okay? It depends on how quickly we can act. Marina picked up the phone. I'm going to call my team. We need to set up an operation for today. While Marina made the calls, Dr. Charles explained to Dr. Henry and Lisa the complexity of the situation. The problem is that Neurogen doesn't work alone. They have partnerships with hospitals, clinics, even some government agencies. It's a very well-structured network. How do they choose the children? Dr. Henry asked. Babies born in public hospitals with severe congenital disabilities. They offer free experimental treatments to underprivileged families. The parents sign consent forms thinking they are helping their children. But Peter was born in a private hospital, Lisa noted. So maybe the family was a specific target. Or maybe the doctor who delivered him was involved. Marina finished the calls and returned to the table. It's done. My team will leave for Savannah in 2 hours. We're going to need your cooperation to locate the family. They're not in Savannah, Lisa said. My mother convinced them to leave the city. Where to? Asheville, the house of the child's grandmother's sister. Name of the sister? I don't know, Marina frowned. We'll have to track it down then. Lisa, can you contact your mother? I can. Call her. I need the exact address. Lisa took her phone with trembling hands. When Mary answered, her voice was low. Daughter? Mom, is everything okay? Everything's fine. We arrived at Mrs. Aparecida's house, sister of Mrs. Helen. It's a small place here on the outskirts of Asheville. Mom, I need the exact address. Why? Because the federal police need to speak with you. Federal police? Mary's voice rose an octave. Daughter, what did you do? I did the right thing, Mom. We found out there are other children like Peter, many others, and the police will protect you. My God. Mary passed the address and the phone number of the house they were at. When Lisa hung up, Marina was already organizing the operation. I'm sending a team to Asheville to protect the family. Another team will search the house in Savannah for evidence. And we'll need you to come with me. Where to? Dr. Henry asked. To São Paulo. The Brazilian headquarters of Neurogen is there. With this device and your testimony, I can get a search warrant. What if they try to stop us? Lisa, you are under the protection of the federal police now. All of you are. At that moment, Marina's phone rang. Faraz, what? What? Damn. Okay, I'm going there now. She hung up and looked at the three with a grim expression.
What happened?
Dr. Charles asked. Journalist Marina Salgado was found dead in her apartment in New York 2 hours ago. The silence in the room was deafening. How did she die? Dr. Henry asked. Apparently overdose, but Marina never used drugs in her life. Lisa felt her legs go weak. Professor, did they kill her because of the investigation? Probably. Which means our window of time is closing rapidly. Marina stood up and grabbed the bulletproof vest hanging behind the door. Charles, call. Your contacts at the CDC. Henry, do you have any reliable friends in the academic field who can keep copies of all our research? I do. Then do that now, because from this moment on, we are at war. As the adults organized themselves, Lisa thought of Peter, probably sleeping peacefully at Aunt Aparecida's farm in Asheville, unaware that his life had become the center of a battle between good and evil, and that the outcome of this battle would determine not only his future, but the future of all the children who could still be saved, or silenced forever. Friday morning found Peter's family awake at Aunt Aparecida's small farm on the outskirts of Asheville. The boy had spent the night restless, waking up several times, frightened by sounds he had never heard before. The crowing of roosters, the mooing of cows, the wind rustling the leaves of the trees. "Noise?" he said, pointing in different directions, his little voice still weak but becoming clearer. "Those are the sounds of the farm, my love," Mrs. Helen explained patiently, while Mary prepared breakfast in the rustic kitchen. Dr. Robert was on the porch, smoking his first cigarette in 5 years when he saw 2 black cars driving up the dirt road leading to the farm. "Helen, Mary, come here, quick!" The 2 women ran to the porch, Peter in Mary's arms. Mrs. Aparecida, a 70-year-old woman and Helen's older sister, appeared drying her hands on her apron. "What cars are those, Robert?" Mrs. Helen asked. "I don't know, but I don't like it at all." The cars stopped in the yard. From the first, 2 men in dark suits and sunglasses got out. From the second, 3 more men dressed similarly. They all had the rigid posture of those used to giving orders. "Dr. Robert Smith?" The first man approached the porch. "That's me. Who wants to know?" "Agent Silver, Corporate Security Division. We need to talk to you about your grandson." "What division is that?" "I've never heard of it. It's a department specialized in sensitive cases." Mary felt Peter grip her neck tighter. The boy was scared, even without fully understanding what was happening. "We're not saying anything without a lawyer present," Dr. Roberts said firmly. "Dr. Smith, you don't understand the gravity of the situation. Your grandson was the victim of an illegal medical experiment. We are here to protect him. Protect him from whom? From the people who did this to him." At that moment, Mary's phone rang. It was Lisa. "Mom, don't say anything to these men. The federal police are on their way." "Daughter, they say they came to protect Peter." "Mom, they are not police." "Get out of there now!" But it was too late. The men had already stepped onto the porch. "Ma'am, hang up the phone," Agent Silver ordered. "I'm not hanging up anything," Mary retorted, holding Peter tighter. "Robert," Mrs. Helen whispered, "get my brother-in-law's shotgun." "Helen, stay calm." "Dr. Smith," Agent Silver interrupted, "let's make this easy. We just want to examine the child. It's for his own good." "My grandson is not going anywhere without me," Dr. Robert declared. "Then come with us. We have a laboratory prepared specifically for cases like his." Peter began to cry, frightened by the tense voices of the adults. He made the sign for home in sign language, wanting to return to the safety of his home. "Home," he said loudly. "I want home." The agents exchanged glances when they heard Peter speak. "Interesting," Agent Silver murmured. "The device really worked." "What device?" Dr. Robert asked. "The neural implant your grandson received when he was a baby. A revolutionary prototype that took 15 years of research." 15 years. And Mrs. Helen repeated, confused. "Ma'am, your grandson is part of the future of medicine. He is one of the first children to receive advanced neurocorrection technology. You experimented on my grandson without our permission?" Dr. Robert was turning red with anger. "Consent was given by the doctor responsible for the birth, Dr. Mark Johnson. Unfortunately, the doctor passed away in a car accident 3 years ago. How convenient," Mishri murmured. "Ma'am, the child needs to return to our laboratory. The device can cause severe side effects if not monitored properly." "What kind of side effects?" Mrs. Helen asked, hugging her husband. "Seizures, brain damage, death." The silence that followed was broken by the sound of helicopters approaching. "Federal police?" On an amplified voice echoed through the valley. "Drop your weapons and put your hands up." The Neurogen agents immediately drew their guns, creating a tense standoff in the yard of the farm. "Dr. Robert," Agent Silver shouted over the noise of the helicopters, "if you come with us now, we guarantee your family's safety. If you stay here, we can't guarantee anything." "Screw you!" Mary exploded, surprising everyone. You experimented on an innocent child. You are criminals! Peter was now crying loudly, frightened by the noise and the tension. His screams of fear echoed through the valley. 3 helicopters landed in the pasture next to the house. Federal police agents, led by Chief Marina Applegate, quickly descended and surrounded the Neurogen men. Drop your weapons. You are under arrest. We have federal authorization for this operation, Agent Silva shouted back. Authorization, my ass. You are wanted criminals. The gunfight lasted only a few minutes. Outnumbered, the Neurogen agents surrendered without causing serious injuries. Chief Marina climbed onto the porch where the family was sheltered. Dr. Robert, I'm Chief Marina Applegate, Federal Police. You are safe now. Chief, what's happening? Who are these men? They are agents of a pharmaceutical company that uses children as guinea pigs for illegal experiments. Your grandson is one of the victims. Dr. Robert sat heavily in a rocking chair. My God, since when? Since birth. The implant was placed during delivery, without the family's knowledge. And now, what will happen to Peter? Marina looked at the boy, who had stopped crying and was watching the helicopters with curiosity. Now he will receive the appropriate treatment. We have a trusted medical team that will assess whether it is safe to keep the implant or if it's better to remove it. And if you remove it, will he go back to being deaf? Mrs. Helen asked. Possibly. But he will be alive and safe. Peter wriggled out of Mary's arms and walked over to Marina. He looked her in the eyes and signed "thank you" in sign language. Thank you, he said aloud, smiling. Marina felt her eyes fill with tears. He will be okay, she promised. You all will be okay. As the Neurogen agents were taken for interrogation, Mary called Lisa. Daughter, everything is fine here. The police arrived in time. Thank God, Mom. And Peter, he's okay. Scared, but okay. Mom, the teachers found out more. There are hundreds of children like Peter scattered across the country. The police will need our help to find them all. We will help, daughter, whatever it takes. That afternoon, while the family rested at Mrs. Applegate's house under police protection, Peter played in the yard, hearing the sounds of nature for the first time in his life. He didn't know that his discovery had triggered the largest operation against illegal human experimentation in U.S. history. He only knew that he could hear the birds singing, and that he was surrounded by people who loved him enough to risk their lives for him. For a 7-year-old, that was all that mattered. 6 months after the operation that dismantled the U.S. network of Neurogen Corporation, Peter Smith played in the yard of the mansion in Savannah, attentively listening to every sound around him. The boy, now 8 years old, had become an involuntary symbol of hope for hundreds of families across the country. Peter, come to lunch, Mary called from the porch, using both her voice and gestures in sign language, a habit she maintained, even knowing he could hear perfectly. I'm coming, Aunt Mary, he replied, running toward the house with a smile that lit up his entire face. The decision to keep the implant had been made after 3 months of intensive medical evaluations. An international team of specialists, coordinated by the World Health Organization, concluded that the device posed no health risks to Peter, and that removing it could cause irreversible neurological damage. How was physical therapy today? Mrs. Helen asked, serving the Southern-style beans that Peter loved so much. It was good, Grandma. And Carla said I'm speaking better every day. Dr. Robert, watching his grandson with a mix of pride and protectiveness, smiled. And what did you learn today? I learned to say neurological development, Peter said, pronouncing each syllable carefully. It's a really hard word. Mary laughed as she put rice on the boy's plate. This boy is going to be a doctor too. I want to be a doctor like Grandpa, Peter declared. But I want to help other kids like me. Peter's transformation went beyond his ability to hear. The boy had developed a special sensitivity to identify other children going through difficulties. It was as if the implant had sharpened not only his hearing, but his empathy. Aunt Mary, Peter said after lunch, did you see the news on TV today? What news, my love? They said they found 15 more kids with the same little device I had. Mary and Dr. Robert exchanged glances. The federal police operations continued to uncover new cases monthly. So far, 143 children had been located in 11 states. It's true, Dr. Robert confirmed. And thanks to what happened to us, all these children will receive help. Can I meet them? Maybe, Peter, but first you need to keep taking care of yourself. That afternoon, while Peter took his daily nap, Lisa arrived for one of her weekly visits. She had become a sort of older sister to Peter and a daughter to the entire Smith family.
How is he?
She asked Mary while they prepared coffee in the kitchen. Every day better, but sometimes I worry about all this attention he's getting. It was true. Peter's story had drawn national and international attention. Journalists, doctors, and researchers constantly requested to interview him or study his case. Chief Marina called yesterday, Lisa said. The trial of the Neurogen executives. It will start next month. And they want Peter to testify? No. She said we have enough evidence without exposing him. Dr. Robert entered the kitchen just as Lisa mentioned the trial. I want those criminals to pay for what they did, he said, pouring himself a cup of coffee. But I also want my family to have peace. Mr. Smith, don't you regret discovering the truth? Lisa asked. Never. How many children would be suffering now if Mary hadn't found that device? At that moment, Peter appeared in the kitchen doorway, still sleepy. Hi, Lisa, did you bring news? I did, champ. Do you want to know? I do! Remember that girl from New York we talked about? Sophia? The one who also had the little device? That's the one. She started walking this week. Peter broke into a huge smile. Really? She managed to walk? She did. And do you know what she told her parents? What? That she wants to meet the brave boy from North Carolina who helped her get better. Peter paused for a moment. Aunt Mary, can I ask something? Of course, my love. Why did people do this to me? Why did they put the little device on me without asking? It was a question that had haunted Mary for months. How to explain to an 8-year-old the complexities of human greed and illegal experimentation. Peter, she said, kneeling to be at his level, there are people in the world who do wrong things, thinking it's for the good. They wanted to help you and other children, but they did it the wrong way. And now they will learn to do it the right way? We hope so, my love. Dr. Robert approached his grandson. Peter, you know you are a very special boy, right? Because of the little device? No, because of your heart. You care about other children, you are brave, you are kind. That has nothing to do with the device. Peter hugged his grandfather. Grandpa, when I grow up, I'm going to help all the children in the world. I have no doubt about that. My grandson. That night, after Peter went to bed, the family gathered in the living room to talk about the future. Robert, Mrs. Helen said, have you decided about the university's offer? The State University of Georgia had offered Dr. Robert a special chair to research safe medical devices for children with disabilities. I have decided. I will accept. But with one condition. Peter remains a normal child. No treating him like a lab rat. And what about Mary? Mrs. Helen looked at the caregiver who had become part of the family. Are you going to accept the scholarship? Mary had received an offer from the same university to study specialized care for children with complex medical needs. I will accept, Mrs. Helen, but only if you guarantee that I will continue taking care of Peter. Mary, Dr. Robert said solemnly, you saved my grandson. You are part of this family forever. 3 years passed. Peter, now 11, was in 5th grade and was one of the best students in school. He had learned to play the guitar, something that would never have been possible without hearing, and was part of the local church choir. Mary had graduated in special care and was working at the new rehabilitation center that the family had helped to establish in Savannah. Lisa had completed her biomedical degree and was pursuing a master's in medical bioethics. Dr. Robert was running a research program that had developed safe prototypes of hearing implants, all tested under rigorous ethical supervision and informed consent. And Peter had become the official ambassador of an international foundation that protected children from illegal medical experimentation. "And Mary," he said one Sunday morning after Mass, "do you think Sophia will like visiting Savannah?" "I'm sure she will, my love. Why?" "Because she's coming to visit us next week. And I want to show her that children like us can be happy. And are you happy, Peter?" The boy looked around. Dr. Robert reading the newspaper in the armchair. Mrs. Helen watering the plants. Lisa playing with the new puppy they had adopted. And Mary, his second mother, smiling at him with all the love in the world. "I'm very happy, Aunt, even with everything that happened." "Why?" "Because I learned that when people truly love each other, they are capable of anything to protect one another." Mary hugged Peter, feeling tears of gratitude running down her face. Outside, the bells of St. Francis Church rang, announcing noon. Peter listened to each chime, remembering when that sound was just silent vibration. Now he could hear the bells, hear the music, hear the voices of the people he loved. But most importantly, he could hear the sound of his own voice when he said, "I love you," to everyone who had risked everything to save him. And to the sound of those century-old bells echoing through the mountains of North Carolina, Peter Smith smiled, knowing that his story of courage had become a symphony of hope for children all over the world. A symphony he could hear perfectly, and that would never be silenced. Please like, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and if you watched until now, comment, "I watched until now," and leave your opinion about this story. Oh, and don't forget to watch the next video that appears on the final screen. It's very exciting.